it was at this point that they had to do a hard stop so they could go off and do house business. And unfortunately for me, I didn't find out that I was going to be doing this until I was in transit back from a conference, and so I had to write my presentation like on the plane when I was told that I would have 3 minutes to speak, and I was only able to get 30 minutes of sleep before I had to get in the car and drive to
Oof.
Austin because I had to register like at 7:30 in the morning at the state capitol. So I have to be there. I have to meet everybody. And so this is it's almost a 3.5 hour drive for me, and so that to be there at 7 in the morning, that's tough, especially when you just landed, just got home. So I mean, I had to rush around in a hurry to do all the stuff that I need to take care of, to jump into bed, to hurry, 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 go to sleep.
Yeah, and then you can't because you're wired.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But then, so on 30 minutes of sleep, I'm there to do my testimony. I'm next in line. They don't get to me. They do the hard stop, and they go off and do their house business
Mhm.
for 11 hours.
Mm.
So I'm
Wow.
stuck in the state capitol. Now, while that was going on, interesting thing, there was a trans rights protest because, of course, Texas is targeting trans people too, because Texas just want to make everything suck for everybody. And
Except
if you're not,
conservative white Christian men. But yes.
yes, exactly. So
Yeah.
there was a nice little protest demonstration going on, and all of that. And so there's always interesting things to see, I think, when you go into the state capitol, because it's always some kind of chaos.
Yeah.
Largely because of the people in charge who just want to take rights away. And I don't know if anybody's noticed that about the right. Is the left, the people on the left are all about ensuring and promoting and protecting human rights, while the right wants to take this one away and take that one away. Let's restrict this one. We don't need regulations. We don't need restrictions. We don't need provisions or protections. Let's just let big business do whatever the hell they want. And there it is. But eventually, we were back in the room. It's 8:30 at night now. I'm still on 30 minutes of sleep, and
I gotta say, I
all of that.
really admire your dedication. Thank you for doing this.
I feel personally motivated. So I'm glad that I have patron support, that I don't have to work a regular job and try to do this at the same time, because all of that would be impossible. So if I didn't have patron support, I wouldn't be able to do anything really. So thank you for saying so, and thank you, patrons, and those who support the efforts. So we finally get back, and we get to do our testimony, and finally they call me. And if they'd called me in the morning, I'd have been home 3.5 hours later, and that would have been great. But no, I had to stay in the Capitol all day. I give my testimony, and then we cut to and the problem is, I had a full panel in the morning, but it was 5 people.
It's whittled down now.
Yeah, because business isn't so important to the people who were elected to do this, apparently. So, and some of the people that I really wanted to reach with my message, the people that I knew would react, weren't even in the room.
That's frustrating. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Chair calls Aaron Raw. Aaron Raw. Okay.
It's Aaron.
Aaron, okay. We show you registered as Aaron Raw on behalf of yourself, and you'll be testifying against the bill. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, you may begin.
Religious extremists don't believe in plurality or inclusion, but only in their own superiority and privilege. So in the 1950s, they changed our national motto from the unifying phrase E pluribus unum to an exclusionary proclamation of religious belief, and then forced atheist children to chant that mantra ever since. They don't want a democratic republic of we the people. They want an authoritarian regime of forced conformity, restricting even our most intimate liberties, what we think, and even who we are. To achieve that goal, they promote American exceptionalism, which is the lie that the U.S. is blessed and will remain so only as long as we appease the Christian version of God, even when that means attacking unbelievers and queer folk, which our increasingly awful state is already doing. In order to sell the first lie, they need to couch it in another lie, that the U.S. was founded as a Christian nation, which is demonstrably factually false, even according to the founders themselves. And the lie that our laws were based on Moses, who experts now say never existed. The First Amendment contradicts the First Commandment because the founders wanted to be the polar opposite of the Sharia-like law of Moses. But if the 10 Commandments were prominently displayed in every classroom, then the kids would believe that lie. That's why religious conservatives want this. They are relentlessly trying to rewrite history to undermine our pioneer example of a secular nation, the only form of governance that can provide religious freedom. And our model has become the envy of the Western world and is now emulated by older countries that were once the oppressive theocracies that our forefathers escaped and that Christian nationalists now want to drag us back to. Governor Dan Patrick said this bill would promote religious freedom, which of course it won't. It will have the opposite effect, which is the intended effect, to promote Christianity to a privileged position. This bill is an unconstitutional establishment of religion by design. That is the whole point of it, and the only possible purpose behind it, so it must not pass.
All right, members, any questions for this witness? All right, we appreciate you being here. Chair calls Charles Cruz. We show you registered as Charles Cruz. On behalf of yourself, be testifying against the bill. Is that correct?
It is.
All right, you may begin.
Howdy, Chair Buckley, Vice Chair Allen, and members of the House Public Education Committee. My name is Charles Cruz. I go by Chuck, and I'm speaking on my own behalf, not representing any organization. Texas pride is legendary, and Texans are known for bragging about Texas. As a member of the Fightin' Texas Aggie class of 2005 with a degree in chemical engineering, I am quite familiar with speaking loudly and with pride. Unfortunately, Texas falls far short of the legendary status claimed by many, especially in public education. Here in Texas, we fall far behind other states which have benefited from more liberal, more progressive leadership that values public education. Texas public education does not even rank in the top half of U.S. states, falling around number 30 out of 50, depending on the source. Such a pathetic ranking should be an embarrassment to every member of the House Public Education Committee. Among U.S. states with a population in excess of 10 million, Texas does lead the nation. In high school dropout rate, 6.4% per the U.S. Census, teenage pregnancy, 20 per thousand per U.S. CDC, and school shootings, as we saw less than 1 year ago in Uvalde. But we aren't here to discuss those topics because Texas Republicans don't see high school dropout rates, teenage pregnancy, or school shootings as a problem. Instead, we are discussing SB 1515, a blatant violation of the Establishment Clause of the U.S. Constitution, which each of you swore to defend. So let us discuss SB 1515. This bill specifies the size of the proposed posting, the text, and the visibility, but does not currently specify the material of construction. As a retired chemical engineer, I can assure you the material of construction is a crucial specification. If you are so intent in violating the U.S. Constitution you swore to defend, I suggest you at least amend this bill to specify the 10 Commandment posters be made of Kevlar so that perhaps the proposed poster might someday actually be of use to Texas school children.
Thank you, members. Any questions for this witness? All right, we appreciate you being here. Chair calls Byron Tucker. We show you registered as Byron Tucker on behalf of yourself, and you'll be testifying against the bill. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay.
Yes. Good evening, representatives. My name is Dr. Byron Tucker. I'm a psychiatrist, and I rise to speak in opposition to SB 1515 today. The state of the law for over 40 years has made it illegal for public school teachers to display the 10 Commandments in their classrooms or for public schools to display them anywhere else in the school building. In the 1980 case Stone v. Graham, the Supreme Court struck down a Kentucky law requiring that a copy of the 10 Commandments be posted on the wall of each public classroom on the grounds that it violated the Establishment Clause. As the court explained, the preeminent purpose for posting the 10 Commandments on schoolroom walls is plainly religious in nature. The 10 Commandments are undeniably a sacred text in the Jewish and Christian faith, and no legislative recitation of a supposed secular purpose can blind us to that fact. The commandments do not confine themselves to arguably secular matters such as honoring one's parents, killing or murder, adultery, stealing, false witness, and covetousness. Rather, the first part of the commandments concerns the religious duties of believers, worshiping the Lord God alone, avoiding idolatry, not using the Lord's name in vain, and observing the Sabbath day. A teacher displaying the 10 Commandments in their classroom sends a message to students that those who share this Judeo-Christian belief are favored, and those who do not are disfavored. When a teacher inserts their own religious viewpoints and beliefs into the classroom, they actually stifle dissenting opinions and open discussion, hindering the educational goals of teaching students tolerance and acceptance rather than divisiveness. I refer you to a book written by Catherine Stewart entitled The Good News Club, The Religious Right's Stealth Assault on America's Children, that describes the divisiveness that can radiate from the classroom out into the community with very troubling results for such proselytizing actions. If you insist on posting some commandments on classroom walls, I might suggest considering the 10 Native American commandments. Number 1, treat the earth and all that dwell thereon with respect. Number 2, remain close to the Great Spirit. Number 3, show great respect for your fellow beings.
Please wrap up your testimony, sir.
Give assistance and kindness, whatever you do, what you know is right. Look after well-being of mind and body. Dedicate a share of your efforts to the greater good. Be truthful and honest at all times. Take full responsibility for your actions. Thank you for your attention.
Members, any questions for this witness? All right, we thank you for coming down. Chair calls Paul Colbert. All right. We show you registered as Paul Colbert on behalf of yourself, testifying against the bill. Oh, yeah. Yeah.
You don't start a timer until people have to look at it.
Okay. Okay, we show you registered as Paul Colbert on behalf of yourself, testifying against the bill. Is that correct?
That is correct.
All right.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members, and thank you for the opportunity to testify. And I hate to be here to testify against something that deals with something that I hold so dear, but my issue is that this is a very, very blatantly sectarian translation of something that's essential to my religion. In Judaism, there are no 10 commandments, there are 613 commandments. And what is referred to in this legislation as the 10 commandments are called Aseret HaDibrot, which means the 10 statements. And the best example I can give you of the difference there is that the very first one in the groupings of those 10 statements is Ani Adonai, Anochi Adonai Elohecha Asher Hotzeitecha Me'eretz Mitzrayim Mibeit Avadim, which is I am the Lord your God who brought you out of the land of Egypt, out of the house of bondage. That is not a commandment in the view of any of the Christian denominations, and so it doesn't show up in their listing of the 10 commandments. It does show up at the top of this chart, however. The second chart that I gave you at the top of this listing of the wording from the bill, this table here shows you the difference between the Jewish, the Protestant, and the Catholic versions of what the 10 commandments are. If you take a look at this listing that's within the bill, you'll notice that there are 12 different items, 11 of which are identifiable as commandments, the first of which is not unless you happen to be Jewish, and that's the part that says, I am the Lord thy God. So one of my issues with this is that if a smart child, and we have millions of those in Texas, takes a look at the wording that is going to be required to be posted in their classroom and says, so what are the 10 commandments? I count either 11 here or 12 here. You're going to be leaving it to a teacher who may or may not have the background to explain what the differences are and why some people view the different ones as different commandments. That's not age appropriate. We've focused an awful lot on age appropriateness, and you're going to be putting in kindergarten classrooms, first grade classrooms, et cetera, things where somebody is not equipped to be able to explain it. There are also some mistranslations, and I know I'm running out of time, so if anyone would like to ask me a question to give you an example of a few of the sectarian mistranslations, I would greatly appreciate it.
All right. Provide us with example.
The best one that I can give you is the one that is common to all of them, but in different numbers within them, and that's, in Hebrew, it's lo tirtzach, okay? It's translated in this document here as thou shalt not kill, okay? Tirtzach in Hebrew does not mean kill, it means murder, and there's a very, very essential difference between the words kill and murder that I think Representative Tallarico raised an issue with respect to his questioning earlier today of the sponsor of the legislation. In the Torah, in the Bible, there are a number of instances where you are in fact required to kill. For example, you are required to kill in times of war. You are required to kill when it is necessary to save the life of another. And so when you say, thou shalt not kill, what you have is a sectarian interpretation that goes back to a number of the Christian translations of it that is totally unrelated to what the actual commandment is or the statement is within Judaism. It should say, thou shalt not murder. If you do that, you would have a more accurate rendering of it. That's not a sectarian document. There are other examples, too. It talks about in the lo lechamod, which is the thou shalt not covet. It talks about not coveting the cattle. There is no mention of cattle within the Aseret Hadibrot. Cattle is bakar. What it says in there specifically is that you shall not covet shor, which is the ox, or chamor, which is usually translated in the King James Version as ass or donkey. And last I knew, and I'm not an expert on animals, but maybe somebody on this committee is, last I knew, a donkey is not considered cattle. So if you post this, you will be posting one particular sectarian view of what is an essential part of the Jewish religion in a manner that is not the way the Jewish religion sees it, and that is an establishment violation under the Constitution of the United States. Be glad to answer any other questions.
Members, any more questions? All right, we appreciate you being here. Thank you.
Thank you.
So Megan Bahoon, on behalf of herself, registered against the bill and not testifying. Chair calls Alex Shawver. We show you registered as Alex Shawver on behalf of yourself, and you'll be testifying against the bill. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay.
I really appreciate being here. I know it's been a long day. I'm a member of a Baptist church. I was always really free to express my Christian faith the whole time I was in school. Much more free than I was to express my queerness, but that's beside the point. I went to a little two-way high school in Wichita Falls. I lugged a bulky Yamaha S80 keyboard out at 6:30 a.m. every year for See You at the Pole. Our band prayed before the halftime show, every football game, and I led a lot of those prayers. Of course, students should be free to express their personal faith, and that's what I always did. And I know the Constitution protects that, but this bill isn't about that. SB 1515 isn't about personal faith or a relationship with Christ or any higher purpose other than a religious mandate from a state legislature. It's not evangelism, it's indoctrination. It's in direct conflict with students' God-given free will. That said, the effect of this law would only be intimidating to any students or teachers of any faith who are frankly scared of the Christian Big C church today. I just really hope you understand what pushing religion on people like this does. It turns them off, but even more than that, it hurts people and it excludes a lot of people. And for Christians like me, my relationship with God is the way I was taught it should be a personal relationship. It makes me really sad and desperate when I see stuff like this. I don't have any peace with a politically radicalized church running a legislature, and I don't know any queer person who does. So all I really want to ask is as a sibling in Christ, because I think I am to a lot of you, just think about people who you might call non-believers, who deserve the right to have their own personal faiths without having King James text over their heads in kind of an alienating environment.
All right.
I appreciate it.
All right, members, any questions for this witness? All right, we appreciate you
Thanks.
being here. Chair calls Mary Elizabeth Castle. We show you registered as Mary Elizabeth Castle on behalf of Texas Values and be testifying for the bill. Is that correct?
Yes, sir. That's
Okay.
correct. Good evening, Chairman Buckley, members of the committee. My name is Mary Elizabeth Castle, and I'm Director of Government Relations for Texas Values Action, and I'm testifying in favor of SB 1515. We appreciate Senator King bringing this bill and Representative Noble carrying this bill in the House. Every 4 years at the State Board of Education, when it's time to consider the social studies TEKS, there is always a deletion or a debate over the Ten Commandments and Moses being a foundation for our laws in our education system. And every time we bring up this debate, it is made clear that the Ten Commandments and Moses and other religious texts and foundational scholars are the founding of many of our laws that we have in the United States. And it's very important for students to be aware of this and not be naive that even though, yes, maybe some may argue that we are a secular nation, a lot of our laws are founded on religious principles and religious texts. Also, this very debate has been brought to the state capitol with Van Orden versus Perry, which is a United States Supreme Court case that our own governor, Greg Abbott, when he was Attorney General Abbott, actually defended having the Ten Commandments on our Capitol grounds, and that case was upheld. Having these Ten Commandments in the classroom should not be a controversial issue. Having them just shows that these are a foundation for our principal laws, that students understand that we gain a lot of what we understand from society from these 10 basic principles. And whether or not a child is a Christian or not, they can find some truth in these 10 principles, and they're there just to represent an educational purpose. For that, I think it'll be great for us to have the 10 Commandments in our classroom, just like we have them on our Capitol grounds. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Members, any questions for this witness? All right, we appreciate you being here.
The thing that really stuck out about her testimony to me was that it was what they want, right? She was giving voice to showing what they really want on the other side. She was revealing their true desires, right? She wants everybody to find something in those 10 Commandments, even though like many people would find them offensive and against their religion and un-American and all of these other things. What the point of displaying them is to get people to start believing in them and adhering to the underlying religion. And I think that came across like very, very clearly in her testimony. It was one of that actually made it substantively, there wasn't a lot there. There weren't she didn't make any great exciting new arguments or anything like that. She didn't covered ground that some of the others had, but it really revealed the other side's true desires, I thought, in a clear and disturbing way.
Chair calls Kristen Harris. Kristen Harris. We're going to show Kristen Harris on behalf of herself, registered against the bill and not testifying. Chair calls Sharon Snowden. Sharon Snowden. We're going to show Sharon Snowden on behalf of herself, registered against the bill and not testifying. Chair calls Cheryl Laws. Cheryl Laws. We'll show Cheryl Laws on behalf of herself, registered against the bill and not testifying. Chair calls Joshua Houston. Show you registered as Joshua Houston on behalf of Texas Impact. Registered, you'll be testifying against the bill. Is that correct?
Yes, sir. Okay. My name is Joshua Houston, Texas Impact. We are opposed to Senate Bill 1515. Texas Impact is the membership organization for the state's mainline Protestant, Jewish, and Muslim denominations. Whenever legislation touches or affects religion, we apply three principles. And the one that is applicable here to this legislation is that government must not favor one faith over another. Senate Bill 1515 favors our Jewish and Christian membership over our Muslim membership, and it chooses winners and losers from among our Jewish and Christian membership. That's because even among the Judeo-Christian members, there is no agreement on what exactly the 10 Commandments are. As you heard from Mr. Colbert, we asked our clergy, and they told us the same thing, that Jews, Lutherans, and Protestants not only translate the text differently, but they also number and divide them differently. So, for instance, many Jews would say, I am the Lord your God is the first commandment, not preamble. Many would find omitting text from the Bible, as this bill does, abhorrent, because remembering God's liberation from slavery is essential to that first commandment. The bottom line is that there is no way to write the Ten Commandments in a way that doesn't pick winners and losers between faith traditions. Respectfully, religious education is not an appropriate role for government, and it should be left to the family and the religious institution of their choosing. Thank you, and we look forward to working with you.
Thank you. Members, any questions for this witness? All right, we appreciate you being here. Melissa Meyer. We'll show Melissa Meyer on behalf of herself, registered against the bill and not testifying. Chair calls David Albert. Okay, we show you registered as David Albert on behalf of on behalf of Texas AFT and ACC AFT and yourself, testifying against the bill. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay, you may begin.
Well, problem with going at the end is that people steal your material, but Representative Colbert. My name is David Albert. I'm a professor of government at Austin Community College, and I'm here to speak against SB 1515. As a political scientist, I can tell you that this is in direct violation of the Establishment Clause of the U.S. Constitution, which, as interpreted by the U.S. Supreme Court, prohibits the state or the federal government from establishing or preferencing a particular religion. If you do pass it, the U.S. Supreme Court, even this conservative court, is very likely to overturn it. I also want to speak to you tonight as a Jew and say that, as has been alluded to, that the Ten Commandments in this bill is not my 10 commandments. In order to justify this sort of bill, advocates will often frame the 10 commandments as a Judeo-Christian document. The document in SB 1515 is a particular English translation of the 10 commandments, which appears to have been based on the King James Bible, which, if I recall correctly, is a translation from the Hebrew to the Greek to the Latin to the English. The Jewish translation of the Ten Commandments, based on the original Hebrew, is a very different document with very different nuances of meaning. Folks have already mentioned the difference between "thou shalt not kill" and "thou shalt not murder," which is pretty significant. As has also been mentioned, the Catholic translations and various Protestant translations are very different. So the translation in this bill is from a very specific translation from a particular religious tradition, which demonstrates that the posting of this 10 commandments in classrooms promotes a specific narrow religious tradition in violation of the Establishment Clause. The entire proposal is unconstitutional. If you want to know more, please feel free to ask me some questions.
All right, thank you. Members, any questions for this witness? All right, Dr. Albert, thanks for being here.
Thank you so much. And it's been a long day.
Yeah, I agree. Okay, is that it? Is that it? All right, is there anyone else who wishes to testify on, for, or against Senate Bill 1515? Okay. Hold on, we're going to need to get you registered.
Okay. I thought I registered earlier, and I checked with the clerk, and they said I had registered.
Well,
It's Jennifer Bates.
Hang on just 1 second.
I may have been confused with Jennifer Margulis.
Oh, okay.
Okay, give me. Okay, we're going to, excuse me, we're not going to show you. We're going to show you, we show you registered as Jennifer Bates on behalf of yourself, testifying against the bill. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
All right.
My name is Jennifer Bates, and I am a Baylor University graduate and currently a seminary student at Bright Divinity School in Fort Worth, Texas. I'm also a future clergy member of the United Methodist Church. Faith and Christianity are my life. I'm here representing myself and opposing SB 1515. I've been in seminary for 5 years now, learning how faith and public life go together and form an individual, giving them hope, life, and love. I recognize that God has given humanity the right to love and to choose who they worship and why they worship them. The state has no right to infringe on faith and to not use my faith and my holy 10 commandments in a way that promotes an agenda or an ideal. The 10 Commandments are not an American value, but a Christian one, and as such have no place in our public schools. Our teachers work hard to create welcoming and inclusive environments so that all humans, even our smallest ones, can grow in knowledge and values. They do not need the state or anyone else interfering with their individual faith values and what they should know. What good is a sign going to do? Is it going to remind them that they are less important to their teachers because they are not Christian? Is it going to remind them the state does not hold what they believe is important? SB 1515 is making the Ten Commandments into an idol, an image that takes us from the true view of God. Forcing the Ten Commandments as a decoration for classrooms are actually breaking the Ten Commandments, that you shall have no other gods before me, you shall have no graven images, and you shall not take the Lord's name in vain. In supporting the bill, the legislature has replaced the golden calf with the Ten Commandments and have ignored the demands of the God that these Ten Commandments claim to be from. The commands to love our neighbor, to care for the sick and the foreigner among us. Instead, these are empty words on a sign, bowing to the God of Christian nationalism. The commandments mean nothing when teachers are forced to put them in the classrooms. It is a farce that will not make our nation Christian, but will make our state a bastion of failed community care. Will not only make the students Christian or better, but it sees Christianity as a religion of a failed state, grasping at whatever means it has to control the people the state has. Thank you.
Okay. Members, any questions for this witness? Yes, Representative Tallarico has a question.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you for being here, Jennifer. And as a fellow seminary student, I found a lot that's very valuable in your testimony. I think young people who are entering the church are very concerned about our fellow millennials, fellow Gen Zers who are leaving religion entirely, right? We know that the nuns, and not the Catholic nuns, but the folks who have no religion at all, that number is rising year after year. Mm-hmm. What do you feel like will be the ramification of this bill here in Texas? Will that exacerbate the problem or help reverse that trend?
I think what we'll see is a lot of people who will see religion as no longer something that is about their love of God, but a reminder of who has the right to say who they are and what they can do. It will no longer be a, I love this God and I will serve this God in the church, and I have to serve this God because this is the God of the state, this is the God of my parents, this is the God of my government. And I think it removes our ability to connect with God in a loving way that actually strengthens our relationship and strengthen the church.
That's beautifully said, and I completely agree. I, in some ways, worry that the unintended consequence of this bill will be creating more atheists in the next generation.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Yeah. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
All right. Members, any more questions for this witness? All right. We appreciate you being here. Is there anyone else who wishes to testify on, for, or against Senate Bill 1515? If not, Chair recognizes Representative Noble to close on the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and committee. I close.
Oh, I'm there. Hold on just 1 second. Representative Tallarico has some questions.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Representative Noble. I know we started our conversation before the floor. I wanted to kind of finish that up. I was thinking about earlier, your primary argument was that we should post, or we should mandate that the Ten Commandments are posted in every classroom because it's foundational. But the foundation of our country is the Constitution of the United States. Would you agree?
I did not. I said that it was foundational to our education and our educational system and to our judicial system.
Would you agree the foundation of our country is our Constitution?
I would agree that the Constitution is very, very, very important to me and to all Americans.
You won't say whether it's the foundation of our
country. Well, I don't know where you're going with this, so I'm not going to be boxed in by wherever you're going with it. I'll just be honest with you.
That's okay. We both swore an oath of office when we joined this legislature. Did you swear to uphold the Ten Commandments in that oath?
I did not.
What did you swear to uphold?
I contend that my relationship with the Lord is foundational to who I am as both a Christian and as a legislator. So I don't know why you're kind of splitting hairs there, but I absolutely love our Constitution and do uphold it.
And so in the oath of office that you took, you sort of uphold
Yes, I did.
The Constitution?
Yes, I did.
So if the Constitution is the foundation of our country, then why are we not mandating the Constitution be posted in every classroom in Texas?
I would welcome you to, I would sign on to that bill if you were going to carry it.
But you're carrying this bill. I'm
I
asking
am carrying this bill.
why the Constitution is not being mandated.
That's not my bill.
So why?
That may be someone else's bill, but that's
So why
not
have
my
you
bill.
made, if we're going to mandate a poster be put up, you've clearly made a choice that the Ten Commandments is deserving of that spot and not some other document like the Constitution. I'm trying to figure out why that is.
This was my decision and my bill to carry.
Do you believe schools are for education and not indoctrination?
Absolutely.
I guess what I'm trying to figure out is why is having a rainbow in a classroom considered indoctrination and not having the Ten Commandments in a classroom?
Is that a question?
Yes.
I am not arguing another poster. I'm arguing that the Ten Commandments are represented in our earliest education system and our earliest education books, all for many, many, many years, and also reflected in our foundation of our laws in this nation. And that's why I think it's important and like a bedrock of where we came from as a nation to share with our students.
Well, I think the foundation of our laws is the Constitution, but we'll move on. The first commandment, at least in this interpretation of this bill, is thou shalt have no other God before me. Am I reading that correctly?
Again, the quote is, I am the Lord thy God, thou shalt now have no other gods before me.
Got it. Christian, Jewish, and Muslim students worship the same God, the God of Abraham. Is that correct?
I believe that to be true.
Do we have students who worship a God other than the God of Abraham in Texas public schools?
I can't speak for those students. I would assume there's a great many different viewpoints on God.
So we have students in Texas public schools that are not Christian, Jewish, or Muslim.
Yes, again, we're not debating Christianity, Judaism, or anything else here. We're debating here whether this document, which is displayed on the grounds of our place here on the wall of the Supreme Court of the U.S. government, whether that is foundational to our education system and our judicial system, and I believe they are.
How do you think it makes a Hindu student feel to have a poster in every classroom that says, thou shalt not worship any God before me?
Again, I'm not gonna try and get into the heads of someone else. I am talking about what is foundational to our nation, what's important to us. And honestly, the fundamental respect and how to treat others and their property is universal. And I'm interested in why you're trying to divide us instead of unite us on this theme.
I'm asking about, and I agree with you about that commandment, but I'm saying the first commandment.
No, this is all of them. This is what they teach us.
And we just agreed that the first commandment is thou shalt have no other God before me. And we've also agreed that there are students who have gods besides the God of Abraham. And so it's not a trick question. I'm just asking you to try to understand how this will make a Hindu student feel, how this will make a Buddhist student feel, how this would make an atheist student feel. Just asking for basic empathy. So how do you,
I don't know how, I think you want me to answer in a way that I'm confused on what you want me to say.
I'm not trying to confuse you.
I'm hoping that when they see that, they will look at it and wonder about our founding fathers and what made them tick. And I think that any historical document should make our students curious about what went before us.
If your goal is to make our students wonder about the founding fathers, why not put the Declaration of Independence or the Constitution of the United States?
Again, that's not my bill. That's someone else's bill.
I thank you for engaging with my questions. I, again, not only am concerned about the constitutionality, but very concerned about the impact that this will have on the students that we are all creating policy for and that we all swear an oath to serve. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Representative Hostin, do you have a question? Okay, then I'll come back to you.
Representative Noble, you've mentioned several times that the Ten Commandments are foundational or a basis for our laws. Can you give some examples?
Well, I think it's obvious when that's the central part of our Supreme Court building, that those that went before us and those that designed those buildings understood that the law that was given to us in the Bible is foundational to how to respect others and how to treat others and to respect their property. And I love that is the foundation of our judicial system. I'm not an attorney, and so I think I've said that before, but I understand that if it weren't for wrongdoers, we would be pretty much out of a job here. And I think that's a lot of what we do is trying to legislate how to treat others well, and I think that is why this is so foundational to us.
You mentioned wrongdoers. We wouldn't have a job here.
Not much.
And it reminds me of what is a primary objection that I have to this bill, and that's that I know there's a lot of wrongdoing that happens in this building by government, right? Government is...
we are certainly not perfect.
We are far from perfect, and government has a bad reputation amongst Republicans, amongst the Democrats, reputation for being corrupt, and if people only knew. And I think it sullies my faith and my religion when government is wrapping itself with the Ten Commandments, trying to claim legitimacy from my religion and from my faith. But I wanted to go back to examples of how the Ten Commandments are foundational to our laws, and I didn't quite understand what you said about the Supreme
I wish
Court.
you would have asked an earlier today an attorney that testified. I just am so grateful that our founding fathers understood that if we don't respect authority and respect others' properties, that we are sunk as a nation, and I love that about what went for us judicially.
So, and I'm not trying to, I don't know what examples there are. Do you have any examples about?
I don't have them in my book.
You don't have?
I will. You know what? I'll get back to you.
Okay.
I would love to.
Because I am looking for examples of how this is foundational to.
Thank you for asking.
To our government and our law. And then finally, I just want to know from you whether you acknowledge legal legitimacy of the doctrine of separation of church and state.
So we're not debating that today. What we are debating is that prior to Stone versus Graham, this was a very accepted educational, and actually prior to Lemon. It was in our textbooks, it was in our classrooms, and for more than 100 years of our nation, that the Ten Commandments and other scriptures were included in the education of children. And so what we're trying to do today is right that wrong that was based on a decision that was overturned.
I'm wondering, though, whether if you don't see a school where we teach children putting up the Ten Commandments as establishing a religion, indoctrinating kids, then do you acknowledge that is a prohibition in our Constitution? And if so, what does that even look like from your perspective? What would be in violation of that if this isn't?
I really don't have the answer for you right now on that, because I feel like I'm being trapped, and I know that that's not your heart, and so I really want to give you a good answer. Can I circle back around to you on that one as well?
You can. And
we're
I'm
all
not
pretty tired at this point.
I know, and I'm not trying to trap you. I'm just trying to understand. There's a different sides here about how we view the Establishment Clause, and I'm trying to understand.
Well, what's really interesting is that for more than 100 years of our government, nobody had a problem with this, and all of a sudden, you know, in the last 50 or 60 years, there's been this very different turn of what that means. And so, historically, this is on my side, and it's only, and I know we're younger, so a lot of us don't remember having this in our classrooms, but I do. And I don't think we're better off for not having it in our classrooms.
Thank you.
Representative Shawver.
Thank you, Representative Noble. I'm going to read something to you. You tell me whether you agree with this statement, okay? The Establishment Clause does not require, indeed it nowhere mentions, the separation of church and state. This phrase is a distortion of a comment made by Thomas Jefferson. Instead, the Establishment Clause prohibits the establishment of a state church, and the Supreme Court has instructed that instead of the Lemon Test's concern with endorsement of or entanglement with religion, courts should look to America's history and tradition in determining whether an action comports with the Establishment Clause. Would you agree with that?
I absolutely agree with that.
And would you agree that under the history and tradition test, Ten Commandments displays are constitutional because they fit within the tradition of publicly recognizing the role of religion in our nation's history?
I do agree with that.
Do you think when students maybe bring lunch money and it says on their, if they're lucky enough to have a $20 bill, "In God we trust"?
It does say that.
Do you think that's indoctrination,
I
or do you
do
think
not.
that's our country's history?
I think that's a motto.
And it was asked of you a couple times, why aren't you requiring the Constitution or the Declaration of Independence to be displayed? But don't, in fact, we require the Constitution and the Declaration of Independence to be taught as part of our Texas essential knowledge and skills?
As well it should be.
So we're merely doing a display where, with other historical things like the Constitution and the Declaration of Independence, we're actually teaching and testing students on those things. So that would be totally unnecessary for this bill because those are already in the classroom as historical foundational principles for our country. Would you agree with that?
Thank you for that clarification. I absolutely agree.
Members, any additional questions? All right. Thank you, Representative Noble.
Thank you. I close.
If there's no objection, the bill will be left pending. Is there objection? The chair hears none, and the bill is left pending.